Monday, May 2nd, this is the City of Brainerd City Council. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:29. I ask Administrator Bergman to please call the roll.
Erickson.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Stunek.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Pritchett.
Here.
Stingline.
Here.
Bevins.
Here.
And Bedot.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have that volume every meeting. Yeah.
All right. Item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. I'm going to look for a couple of indulgences here with the council's permission, and that's that I'd like to take item, which item is it? The item 7, the community member of the month. I'd like to put that up first after the consent calendar, and then the arboretum I'd like to put immediately following the 2 presentations. Is there a move to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Pritchett, second by Stunek. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 5 is the consent calendar. This is a notice to the public that all matters listed are considered routine by the council and will all be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. Is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Motion by Erickson, second by, was that O'Day? Yep. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stingline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, we are underway. So next up, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Mayor Bedot for the Community Member of the Month.
All right, that is clearly what you are all here for. We've actually got a few gentlemen and ladies that'll be coming in here to join us. Pack them in. And you guys can actually make your way right up to the front. Just pile in. Keep them coming, keep them coming. Yeah, come right all the way across. Go stand by Paul Sandy. He's the good-looking guy in the suit. Not the other guy in the suit.
Smiley guy.
Not the other guy in the suit.
The good-looking guy in the suit. Wow, Joe. Defamation of character there.
Yep. Okay,
All right. Keep coming, keep coming.
keep coming.
Keep coming.
Right up front.
Keep coming. Everybody come on down. Well, now you can't see me. Down in front. All right, so I'll stay here just so we can talk into the microphone. But every month we do a community member of the month. And this month we have the great pleasure of thanking a group that is in front of us, as well as some other members that are in the community. This last winter, we enacted a program that we referred to as the Snow Shoveling Brigade. And what this project was it came about when we had the Safe Routes to Schools coming in Northeast Brainerd. We had a bunch of sidewalks that were getting put in on properties that traditionally did not have sidewalks. And one of the questions I asked was, well, what do we do for the homeowners that may have an issue shoveling that sidewalk? And in our city, it is your responsibility as a homeowner to shovel the sidewalk. And we wanted to make sure that we were doing a good job as stewards of the community to find solutions. And so I was able to get a grant from Crowing Energize for some snow shovels. We had those snow shovels, and then the trick to it was, all right, now we got to go find people to step up. And in front of you, you have a great group of individuals that helped us step up and take care of that. I believe we had taken on 12 properties almost 20 properties in the city of Brainerd that we were responsible for helping out. And I can attest, myself, I went and helped out at some of these households, and these were people in need. You know, we had a gentleman that had open heart surgery, and his wife was in a wheelchair. We had a lady who was blind and who could shovel out to the road, but she couldn't get across the sidewalk safely. And we had another household that was just getting to that age where shoveling becomes difficult. And so this group here stepped forward And this group did a fantastic job of helping us out to make sure that the people in our community that need help and the people that are in our community that may not usually be heard of were able to have their sidewalk shoveled and be able to traverse and move easily. So without further ado, I want to congratulate this group here, and I'll come down for this. Gotta get the photo. This gentleman right here, you can come on down here. I handed out free pizza last week, a couple weekends ago. This was the guy that showed up from the Boy Scouts. So now we're gonna get the official thank you to all the members here and to the other individuals in the community that stepped up as well. Our community members of the month, the Snow Shovel Brigade.
No, that's okay. I'll get it. I know how to do this.
You're gonna go through the whole audience too?
I'm up for re-election.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're free to go. You can stay if you want to, but you are free to go. We moved you up to the front for that reason.
Which side of the Diaz were you
Are
talking
you
about?
talking about this side or that side?
You guys are stuck.
The only month in Minnesota with no measurable snowfall. July.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
523 Holly Street next winter.
Also up for re-election.
You're not old enough, I am.
Yeah, the old guy.
We're shoveling.
All right, next, it is my privilege to introduce from our representatives from Camp Ripley. We're going to move you guys next. Come on up. We're happy to welcome you to the city of Brainerd. If you would, give us your name so everybody knows who you guys are, and let's hear your presentation.
All right, excellent. I'm going to adjust some equipment here. So good evening, Mayor, council members, and this esteemed crowd. If I had known I was going to be this kind of draw, I'd have brought more people to record this.
I told them you were bringing a tank.
So I'm Brigadier General Lowell Cruz. I'm the senior commander at Camp Ripley. I work for the Adjutant General Sean Mankey as one of his assistant adjutant generals. And I have the luxury of being stationed at Camp Ripley and get to manage that installation on a day-to-day basis. So when we get to the front of the presentation here, what you're receiving is the 2022 Camp Ripley update. You know, this is probably the 5th time I've provided this particular briefing to this city council. I was pretty excited. I was sitting back there and last year it was your first open meeting that I was here for. So that was pretty cool. Another notch in the world events here as we fight a pandemic. And we'll talk a little bit about what your National Guard's done as part of that pandemic response here inside of this update. So next slide, please. As you know, every good organization looks at its values and its culture, and it develops in the military what we call a mission statement. And this is my mission statement. So Camp Ripley exists to train your military for your nation's worst day, for your state National Guard for your state's worst day, and then the third leg of that three-legged stool for me is to be the best neighbor I can be. And so this effort that we have right now coming out and meeting in front of civic organizations and city councils and county commissioners is all in an effort for that third portion of positive community relationship. And obviously we create a lot of noise and smoke sometimes and dust, so maybe it's a good thing that we're asking for positive community relations. Next slide. So I like to start with some who's who in the zoo kind of pictures, and this is my boss. So that's why he's up there. It's important for me to acknowledge Major General Sean Mankey is the Adjutant General of Minnesota. He's on his second year in that role, and he's supported by CSM Brian Soper as the senior enlisted leader of the Minnesota National Guard. Next slide, please. And then we turned over our leadership. We're the home of the 34th Infantry Division here in the Minnesota National Guard. It's one of 8 infantry divisions in our nation, in our National Guard, the number 1, I would suggest. And it's led by a new general by the name of Charles Kemper, and his CSM is Michael Whitehead. Michael is the president of the DAV at the national level, so we spread leadership throughout all sorts of organizations within the Minnesota National Guard, and a lot of these people have day jobs as well as part-time jobs as soldiers. Next slide. And then finally, my leadership at Camp Ripley. I'm in my 5th year as the senior commander at Camp Ripley, and I'm supported by Colonel Josh Seimer, who's my M-Day garrison commander. And with me tonight is CSM Marcus Erickson. He's my right hand at Camp Ripley as my senior enlisted advisor as well. Next slide. So obviously, bottom line up front for the community, what does Camp Ripley bring to your world? Camp Ripley is the largest employer in Morrison County. We think we bring about $86 million worth of benefit to the community. I have up to, some days, up to 1,000 state and federal employees on the installation. I'd say on average, there's probably about 150 of them that live in your Brainerd area. And on an average basis, we spend about $16 million on construction projects in and around Camp Ripley. So that's the second line down there, varies from year to year and really talks about how our payroll and our economic impact changes year to year. Next slide, please. So throughout 2021, Camp Ripley was very busy. You would think in year 2 of the pandemic, we'd be going back to kind of normal training and things like that. But we hosted about 550,000 man days of soldier DOD training. That's about 100,000 more than average, and the reason why is because of the massive amount of support we made to the state and state active duty for our soldiers helping fight COVID. And so most of those soldiers started their tour at Camp Ripley and ended it as well. And then along with that, on top of that, about 68,000 man days of local, state, interagency partner training at Ripley as well. We expanded our base of DOD customers by hosting some Air Force airmen from Kentucky with the 123rd Contingency Response Group. They flew the first C-17 under my airfield that I can remember, so that was kind of a significant event for us. We also are supporting both the Navy and the Coast Guard dive teams as they come to Camp Ripley in the winter and dive under our ice. So pretty amazing training to watch there as well. Our 194 armor out of Brainerd here mobilized through Camp Ripley last spring. Spent a year overseas in Kuwait. Got the opportunity to help defend the Kabul airport as part of that evacuation in August, and really have some amazing stories from that year-long deployment, and added some more lineage and heritage to the 194 armor that's hosted here in your Brainerd Armory. We hosted 2 state patrol academies. We'll talk about the state patrol being a member of the state agencies that are at Camp Ripley full-time. This last fall in September, we hosted our largest open house to date. Every other year in September, we open up Camp Ripley's gates on a Sunday and trot out all our equipment and invite the public to come and look at it. And I want to say it was because it's, we're cool, but I think at that point last August, people just wanted to get out and do something. And so the number of people we had there, well over 6,000, was our largest to date. And then this winter, we hosted the biathlon for the National Guard. It's the Chief National Guard's biathlon. We had over 39 states participating in that. And last summer, we hosted Camp Ripley's 90th birthday in June. We're about 10 years away, obviously, from the 100th, and we'll be excited about celebrating that centennial coming up here. Next slide, please. So this slide's in here for your civic leaders and for the public to understand how does the National Guard get to go and support an operation. And we currently still have soldiers on flood duty up on the Red River up by Oslo right now. And this would be an example of how they got there. There was some event, a winter storm response, flood response, civil disturbance that expended all the local assets. And so your county sheriff puts in a request to HSEM that at the state level that they build a package that the governor signs as a state active duty order for your National Guard. And then we figure out the mission and how many bodies to create whatever one of those tasks there on the right is, from doing levee patrol like we're doing on the Red River right now to you know, the massive support that we provided a year and a half ago for the riots in Minneapolis. Next slide. So just a couple slides on some construction update at Camp Ripley. We continue to replace our tin huts. This is a reoccurring theme for me every time I come here. But we had several hundred of them to replace. And so we're building these CMU buildings, what we call longhouses. And we can put about 200 soldiers in each one of those buildings. We're building a new headquarters in Area 9. We just had a grand opening for our fire hall here last month. Our fire department's got a brand new facility that will provide them housing for their crews that are on a 24-hour schedule. And we're working through some of our parking headaches. Is just like any other city, I have parking problems and things like that, as well as our soldiers no longer come to camp in a big bus full of soldiers. Everyone drives their own car. And so that creates a little bit of headache for me as well. Next slide. And so this summer, we're working on several different things. There's a separate slide coming to talk about Nelson Hall. We're building some more storage facilities for our tanks and Bradleys. We hauled thousands of truckloads of dirt out of camp this fall and winter as we built 3 very large stormwater infiltration basins along the Mississippi River. They're already working. They're half full of water from all the recent rains. So all our storm sewers dump into those basins, and it allows that water to leach back into the aquifer rather than dumping it in the river. So that's good for the river and good for our water table. This next week, we're going to start the design of a project to build 2 rail spurs in camp. I currently have 2 rail spurs, and this will add 2 more to our inventory, which will allow me to load 2 trains at once, which is important when we're trying to mobilize our armor brigade and get them out of town. And then we're also going to open up the Joint Emergency Response Training Center. This was state bonding money that we received about 6 years ago to build a rail car spill train center for local fire departments. So we worked with the state fire marshal for that facility. I think it's got 5 rail cars and various types of derailment. It's got some natural gas wellheads and lots of different apparatuses for fire departments to come and learn how to, your local fire departments to come and learn how to respond to those kind of emergencies. Next slide. So Nelson Hall is getting renovated. It was built in the 1930s. It was the original post headquarters. And it was, for the last 20 years, it's housed the Department of Natural Resources and their full-time staff. We asked them to move out about a year ago, and we're currently in the middle of putting about $2 million into the interior of that building. And it will become my new headquarters here this summer again. So very historic building for us on the National Historic Registry. And we're pretty proud that we're going to put it back into shape to be the fitting command headquarters for the post. Next slide. And then just a little bit of update on the museum. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. Last year, the legislature approved $13 million with the bonding money for the museum, but with the current inflation of costs and all that, all the bonding projects in the state are in jeopardy because they can't make their bid. And so we are asking, or the museum board is asking the state legislature for an additional $10 million in this bonding piece. I think we're pretty confident that they'll see that money come out of the bond if there is a bonding bill. And that'll allow them to get back after redesigning it with an expected opening in probably the spring of 2025. And as you're aware, the map on the left shows where it's located right next to the Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery. So it's going to be a prime location for that museum that's tasked with interpreting the military history of not only the National Guard, but all our services here in Minnesota. Next slide. So the next series of slides talks about some of our troop flow in the next several months. First month is May, and we're well into May here on May 5th. And so later in the month, we'll host trolling for the troops. We're doing turkey hunts right now. Last week, we just did a whole series of DAV turkey hunts. I had a lot of disabled veterans there in wheelchairs and that, killing turkeys. Good thing. And we've got some soldiers that are hunting turkeys right now. Next weekend, we'll host the Best Warrior, the regional Best Warrior competition. So soldiers from 5 states will come and compete against each other to pick the best NCO and the best soldier in the National Guard at our region level. And that'll lead on to a state or a national competition. And then this week, we start 3 field artillery battalions back to back for their annual training at Camp Ripley. And so we're working through some ammunition issues for one of those battalions right now. It's on the ground. We've sent most of the ammo that they were going to shoot this summer to the Ukraine, so they got to ship up some new ammo from Oklahoma for them. But we're going to get them moving here. As you can see in May, about 78,000 man days for us is what is May shipping up to be. Next slide. And then that rolls into June, which is our heaviest month, almost 100,000 man days alone in June. A lot of soldiers coming to Camp Ripley to train in June. Simultaneously, we're hosting the Minnesota Officer Candidate School, which is how we make officers in the National Guard. Lots of field artillery firing again. And we're hosting a lot of units from the region around us, North Dakota, South Dakota, Illinois, Michigan. Next slide. July, we have a little bit of a decrease. We're back in that 60,000 man days level. Continue with some field artillery from New Ulm. The 125 will be up in July, as well as hosting units in Wisconsin and South Dakota. And we finally get to host 2 weeks of our own youth camp that's historically been held at Camp Ripley. And with COVID, we've had it in various stages of lesser capability, but this year we'll have a full-up youth camp again as well. Next slide. And then finally rolling into August, another 60,000 man days, so that's pretty average for us, 70 to 60,000 or 60 to 70,000 a month. And in August we'll have some more engineer units there that'll be using our demo ranges. So I guess the heart of these slides, what we're trying to tell you is from May today through August, we're going to be very noisy with field artillery firing and aviation flying and some engineers blowing up stuff. Next slide. So we look ahead to the fall. We welcome the MnDOT snowplow training again in September and October. We're hosting the second of 2 State Patrol Academies this fall. And then we have a series of archery hunts and muzzleloader hunts that run through the October and November timeframe. We have about 2,500 snowplow drivers to train in September. They come and train on how to drive snowplows at Ripley so that hopefully they don't run into your car in Minneapolis. So next slide. On camp, just as a reminder, I've got 4 active partners that are state agencies that have people headquartered at Camp Ripley. The DNR and the State Patrol both host their academies at Ripley, and I'm going to have a DNR academy as well as 2 State Patrol academies this year, as well as Homeland Security Emergency Management has offices on post. Next slide. So we talk about some community outreach. The Camp Ripley open house will be in September of 2023, so you'll hear about it again next spring when I come back to talk to you. We are in the middle right now of our busiest season of hosting 5th graders to come to Ripley and do environmental field tours. We've got the Earth Day and the Camp Ripley Nature Day coming up just this week. Hosting several different events with our tribal partners. We host a great event called Planning for the Future. We're bringing high school kids from several tribal schools to Ripley to share some culture back and forth. In In the fall and the winter, we participate pretty heavily in food drives for the local food shelves, Make-A-Wish, Christmas gift cards, those kind of things. And obviously on the bottom there, all sorts of veteran hunting programs that we're really proud of. June will see the Trolling for the Troops fishing event where we bring together, this year we've got almost 200 applicants for that. So we'll find around 100 professional fishermen that'll host those veterans for fishing for a day. Next slide. Our environmental program, we couldn't be more proud of it. It's nationally recognized almost every year. It really is designed to help us protect Camp Ripley to continue to have it meet our mission and meet, the environmental mission for the, as far in the future as we can imagine. In the box there in the bottom kind of talks about a lot of the agencies that come and inspect and make sure that we're doing things right at Camp Ripley. And I can tell you that, it's a good azimuth check for me that when my organizations are winning awards for their environmental stewardship, that I don't have much to worry about when we get inspected by the EPA or the Minnesota Pollution Control. Next slide. And so we can't do that work environmentally without a lot of help. And so the DNR and the Bowser are great state-level agencies that assist our programs. We're getting ready to bring on a whole bunch of interns from St. Cloud State and Central Lakes College. It's always fun to see those wildlife biologists come and take care of things like counting the number of turtles that run around downrange and various bugs and critters. And then obviously what we do with the local school districts is pretty important as well. Next slide. So we're in the middle of trying to burn about 15,000 acres. It's been absolutely the worst weather imaginable to burn off anything. We're about 13% into that total right now. We do these burns primarily for one reason. We shoot a lot of munitions that cause fires, and we obviously want to protect our communities and keep a fire from running off Camp Ripley. So most of those fires, as you can see, the stuff in yellow is stuff that we burn so that we don't have to worry about a future fire getting away from us. And the stuff in the darker red is stuff that we burn to control the vegetation in those areas. And like I said, we've got a lot of land to burn here in the next couple of weeks. Next slide. And then finally, just an overview of our Sentinel Landscape 8-Cub program. About 35,000 acres enrolled into 8-Cub. All those green blocks around Camp Ripley are chunks of land that are enrolled in a conservation program to keep forest, farmland. And so we work with willing landowners in that, and it's all designed to help protect the millions of dollars of investment that we put into Camp Ripley from encroachment to keep somebody from building a development or something like that right along my fence line. So next slide. And then my safety officer makes me put this in every year, so if you see any of these things laying around, please don't touch them. But do tell somebody. And every year it seems we come up to Brainerd with some of our EOD and help retrieve a grenade that Grandpa brought back from World War II or something like that. And obviously we have a lot of munitions that are in our impact areas, and that's why they're off limits, and we try to keep people from getting in there to borrow things. So next slide. And gentlemen, ladies, this is my staff that helps me on a day-to-day basis keep the place running, and I'll endeavor to answer any questions you have. So,
Thank you. Any questions from the council for the Brigadier General? Get off easy tonight.
there we go.
You want to introduce the guys behind you?
You do.
The ones that
You
were
bet.
making faces at you the whole time? No, they weren't.
But I'm going to get out of your hair. You got bigger fish to fry, the way it looks to me.
Oh, no, they're all here to see you guys. All right, thank you guys for coming. You can applaud these guys. Thank you. Paul, they must be here to see you.
That's what I'm thinking. Everyone wants to hear about stormwater.
If you've got videos, I think there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah.
Sanitary sewer videos?
Sewer videos are awesome.
Boring sewer.
Hey, you get the rain gardens. They're kind of nice to look at.
All right, Mayor and Council, tonight we are here to review the city's MS4 permit and kind of go over what we've done in the prior year. So this is an opportunity to have the public come up and speak about our MS4 permit. I'm sure that everyone wants to come talk to you guys about it. And so we'll leave that at the end, but I'll just go through some of the stuff that we do every year regarding our program. Why do we do this? It's to educate the public on the importance of stormwater management. I'll give a brief overview of our storm sewer system and what we maintain as a city. I'll give an update on the status of of compliance with our MS4 permit. That's municipal separate storm sewer permit that's administered through the MPCA. And then at the end, we have to allow the public an opportunity to comment. So what is a MS4 permit? It is issued every 5 years by the MPCA. And it's for cities and townships over 5,000 in population, in which Brainerd falls in that criteria. The permit regulates the discharge of stormwater into waters of the state. Requires that the permittee, that being the city, implement and develop a SWIP plan. That's a stormwater pollution and prevention plan. And as part of that plan, we have to implement minimum control measures. So you'll hear me say MCMs, that's what I'm referring to. And standard operating procedures, SOPs, you'll hear that too. There's a lot of acronyms that come with this permit, and you'll learn about all of them tonight. Stormwater Pollution and Prevention Plan, SWIP. The city developed a SWIP to address 6 minimum control measures, and those are listed there. So tonight, public education and outreach. This meeting, along with other things that we do as a city, meet the requirements of this portion of our permit. Public participation and involvement, that's another section of this tonight. Illicit discharge and detection and elimination. That's the stuff we don't want in our storm sewers. There's plans and standard operating procedures that we have as a city that train our staff to look for illicit discharges and to report those and get them cleaned up as soon as possible. Construction site runoff controls, those deal with sediment and erosion barriers on construction sites. Post-construction stormwater management, that's the stormwater ponds. You heard Camp Ripley that they talked about 3 infiltration basins next to the river. The city has many, many of those ponds. That's what that plan talks to. And then finally, pollution prevention and good housekeeping is the final part of our SWIP. And that addresses our municipal operations as a city. Snow plowing, salt control, that kind of stuff. Dumpsters, whatever else deal with stormwater. The goal of our SWIP is to create best management practices, BMPs, another acronym, which will reduce or eliminate sediment or other pollutants that go into our lakes, rivers, and wetlands. So our storm sewer system, we have a total of about 304,000 feet of pipe. Most of it is reinforced concrete, and it ranges between 8 inches and 60 inches. So from a very, very small storm sewer pipe to a very large one that you can walk through. We have about 2,600 catch basin structures, so they're the cutouts in the curb line, and about 580 manholes, or the castings you see in the middle of the street. About 84 storm outfalls. Most of those are the end of the pipe that go into the Mississippi River, the Little Buffalo Creek, and a bunch of other stormwater structures. We have 44 wet detention ponds. Those treat stormwater before it enters back into our system. 32 private infiltration or detention ponds. Those are required by our ordinance. And then 22 rain gardens. Those are in the Graydon, Cedar street areas. How do we fund this system? The city funds repairs and upgrades to our storm sewer system through the Storm Sewer Fund. Each residential property is charged 1 residential equivalency unit, and that's $4 a month. And then commercial properties are charged for every 1/12 of an acre of impervious commercial surface, they're charged 1 equivalency unit. So for every 1/12 of an acre, they're charged $4. You can see the number we have there of total current REUs in the city. So what did we do last year? As part of our permit, we have to do annual inspections. We inspected 26 of our outfalls. We're required to inspect 1/5 of them a year. So we were a little ahead of our 1/5 or 20%. We inspected 11 ponds. We inspected our 11 stockpile areas, and we're required to inspect those 4 times a year. So that's 44 inspections. And then we're required to inspect our 22 rain gardens 4 times a year. What do we do after those inspections? Well, we look at deficiencies in each of those items and repair them or maintain them as needed. As part of the building permit process, we conducted 111 formal erosion control inspections. Those are done by drive-bys by our city staff. They look at tracking onto city streets. They look at perimeter control. We have 2 developments going on right now. So we look at those sites often to ensure that the contractor is not allowing sediment or other pollutants to enter storm sewer system. We cleaned about 53,000 linear feet of sanitary sewer. So that's done by our Vector truck and our CCTV televising equipment. So we camera our storm sewer and our sanitary sewer pipes. And then we swept about 1,200 cubic yards of material from our streets. And we sweep twice a year generally, and then we keep track of how many truckloads we take away from the streets. And it equated to about 1,200 cubic yards of material. So what else have we done? As you know, we applied for coverage of our new Ms4 permit. We were issued coverage in September of 2021. The MPCA then gives us a year to revise our Ms4 program to be in compliance with the new permit. We implemented new plans and SOPs, standard operating procedures. These are all on our website, and you can read all about them. Some of them are pretty short, some of them are pretty long. They're basically plans and operating procedures for city staff to do site inspections, what to do when they find an illicit discharge, what is enforcement can we have against people that are creating illicit discharges, and all those plans are found at our website there. I'll get into that a little bit later in this presentation. What's coming up on our completion timeline? So tonight the SPW committee looked at our ordinance 725, or our section 725 of our city code. We did a full rewrite of that and combined 2 of our city code sections into one. We'll be completing a Brainerd stormwater design manual in June and July. A lot of the reference in the ordinance references a design manual. We tried to keep all the design criteria out of the ordinance because it changes so often. We'll have to review our MCM plans and SOPs one more time to make sure we're in regulatory compliance with the permit. We'll bookend the SWIP into a binder, and then we'll roll out the plan and update our website, hopefully in September, which is our completion date. Some of our Ms4 Special Projects, we've talked a lot about our Buffalo Hills Gully remediation project. Right now we're at about 30% plans. Our next steps are easements and a 60% design, so that's what we're working on right now. We'll be implementing our stormwater retrofit study. This was a study that was completed in June of 2020. It identifies areas where we can implement small green infrastructure like rain gardens or other things, catch that stormwater before it goes into a pipe. And there's many grant funding opportunities available for projects like that. And then we'll be implementing our stormwater H&H model, and that looks at all of our city stormwater infrastructure and models them to different storm events. And we look for areas of localized flooding during those events where we take opportunities to upsize pipes during capital improvement projects. On the horizon, our next permit cycle, the city will be responsible for a total maximum daily load to the Mississippi River. This means that the MPCA has identified the river as impaired for total suspended solids, and we'll be responsible for minimizing the amount of sediment that we put in the river and documenting how much we've removed. And so some of our projects will count towards that. The Buffalo Hills project will be something that we can take credit for. Our street sweeping, things like that, that's all stuff that we document that help us meet our TMDL. I invite everyone to visit the city stormwater page. There's a lot of information on here, information for developers, for engineers, for people working on plans. This is where everything's kind of housed from a city perspective. It gives some of our projects that we've done previously and kind of goes over our whole Ms4 permit from top to bottom. So at this point, I'll take any comments or questions, and then I invite Mr. Chair, if you would open the public hearing to take any testimony for our stormwater permit.
Questions from the council first? Gabe Johnson?
Just one comment. Not me, but this guy I know just illicitly discharged a baseball down the storm drain, and he feels really bad about it. He's sorry. Please take it easy on him.
We're gonna find you.
Yeah.
It'll be in the next sewer video.
We are after that guy. Paul, you know, it came up at the Northside Residents Association where we dump our snow. There's a number of places, and some residents were concerned that we were getting these huge salt piles leaching into, in this case, it was down by the cemetery, going into the bog between the river and the old Franklin School. Explain your answer as to why, what's going on there. There's like 4 of those or 3 places in the city.
Yep, correct, Mr. Chair. So the city, the county, and the state all have snow dump sites. So, for example, the state and county use the fairgrounds. We have 3 sites. That is the Evergreen Landing, in which you reference. We do use the fairgrounds every once in a while, and then we use a place on Walnut, the corner of Walnut and Oak Street. Those activities are specifically exempted from stormwater controls because they're a matter of public safety. However, I will say that the city is very, very smart about how much salt we use in our salt sand mixture. And so a lot of what you see there is not, we don't have a ton of salt in our mixture. It's around 9 or 10% of total salt in our salt sand mixture. And we only salt intersections. So you're getting a lot more of that salt and leaching from the snow that MnDOT and the county are using because they have a lot more straight salt that they use on county roads and state highways.
Thank you. Any other questions of our engineer? Okay, our Public Works Director. Then we are going to officially open a public hearing on, as required by state law, on the MS4 permit. So it's 8:10, and if you're here to speak or have questions or comments on the MS4 permit, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and let us know what you think about it. Oh, don't be shy. Second call. Anybody here on the MS4 permit? Paul, you might get off the hook. All right, last call, and we will close the public hearing on the MS4 permit at 8:11. Anything else from council on the MS4 permit? Seeing none, we will move on to, if you're following along, item 9B, which is the funding for the Arboretum. And I know we've got a ton of people here that are here for this. Why don't you come on up, but you're gonna stand here for a second while I explain what happened so far is, if you remember, the council sent this to the Charter Commission, the funding for the Arboretum, to clarify the intent on the wordage within the city limits of Brainerd. The Charter Commission, of which I am the non-voting liaison, has sent back to the council a unanimous decision that their intent within the city limits of Brainerd means that the money levied be spent on entities fully within the city of Brainerd. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. We have 1 applicant, I believe, for the monies that we levy. We asked for an RFP, I believe, or, yep, and the Northland Arboretum has responded. Now, there's a ton of folks here, and the rules are, this. I talked to Candace, just so you know, I cheated today, because I knew there'd be a bunch of people here, and they wanted to speak, and she asked me if they'd be able to speak, and I said yes. However, I'm gonna let her go first, and I'm gonna ask you this question. You think we can do this in like a half an hour?
I believe we can.
Okay, so the rules will be, if you want to speak, we want to hear from you. But just like I'm gonna ask Candace here in one moment, I'm gonna ask your name and your home address, and there are sign-up sheets on both sides. I'm gonna ask you put your name. What else do we need, Tony? Address. Name and address so we know who's speaking, but we are on the internet, and so those people need to know who you are and where you live. And so please try and keep it to a minute or so. Repeat yourself all you want. We get it while you're here. It's okay. We want to hear from you as much as we can, but we're also going to try and keep it into a reasonable amount of time. Okay, So, if you're here to speak on the Arboretum, please start lines on both sides right now, and we're gonna go every other side, because you're gonna go as quick as you can, and you're gonna follow Candace's lead, and you can't, the other thing is you can't boo, and you can't cheer, and you can't clap, okay? You can do that for the Camp Ripley guys, but you can't do that for the ARB, okay? Do that at the ARB. All right. Candace, welcome to the Brainerd City Council. Please state your name and home address and what you'd like to say on this issue.
My name is Candace Zimmerman. I'm the Executive Director of the Northland Arboretum. I reside at 10246 County Road 44 in Brainerd. Thank you, Mr. President and council members, for allowing me time to speak tonight, as well as other members in attendance. According to our volunteers, we have 71 supporters in attendance tonight. 29 are Brainerd residents. Over the last week, you've heard from many community members about the value of the ARB and its impact to Brainerd residents, Brainerd businesses, and the surrounding community. I'm sure you will hear more from them tonight. My concern lies in a frayed partnership between the city and the Northland Arboretum. From where I'm standing, I have not seen this situation play out in a community-minded way, which values and protects the most unique asset our community holds. I hope to highlight what community means to us at the Arboretum. But first, some fun facts. We have 1,122 Arboretum members, and 40% of them have Brainerd addresses. Our events this past year brought in thousands of people from outside the immediate area. Sertoma's Winter Wonderland alone sees 14,000 visitors in 1 month. On average, trackable attendance to Arboretum hosted events was 41.5% Brainerd residents. We can even dial into our website data and look at traffic by the city. And Brainerd residents visit our educational offerings 8 times more than any other neighboring city. Perhaps most importantly, 40% of the Northland Arboretum lies in Brainerd. We are still within the city limits of Brainerd. Every supporter here has a story about their deep connection to the ARB. We're the home base for master gardeners, master naturalists, Focal Point, Sertoma, Rotary, Girl Scouts, 4-H, and more. By drawing a line in the sand, you've forgotten the human component, and that the ARB stands as a linchpin in our lives, connecting groups and individuals, and yes, even cities, and we gather them together. This is something that should be celebrated. As leaders, it's your responsibility to foster relationships and create a sense of community, not create a divide. This process certainly did not have to play out this way. You had a choice. You chose not to include the Arboretum in early discussions. You chose not to notify us of a potential change. You chose to agree to a charter amendment without including us. If you valued the ARB, if you had any respect for the ARB, you would have sat down, clarified your concerns and intentions, and asked how you could help seek the goals of the city alongside maintaining the fiscal health of a nonprofit that's been in the community for 50 years. That, I believe, is what responsible, community-minded leadership and partnership looks like. What I'm witnessing is disappointing. If you do have another choice to make tonight. Choose to work alongside our leadership and be willing to have honest conversations about future goals and timelines. Approve the levy funding for another grant cycle and allow us time to find a mutually beneficial solution. Every one of the community members here tonight are witnessing your leadership. I hope you consider each one of them in your decision and ask yourselves what you want your legacy to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. No, you can't clap. Come on, come on. You, and on my right, you'll be next, so be ready. State your name and home address, please.
I'm Amy Gray at 1725 Graydon Avenue in Brainerd. I'm a third-generation Brainerd resident, third-generation Arboretum member, and my grandfather was actually one who helped start the ARB when it was just a city dump over in Baxter, but a city dump for Brainerd. And when it comes to the city charter, I also my understanding is that there are 2 other organizations that are part of that charter, Brainerd Community Action being one of them and the Center being one of them, both of which geographically are located fully in Brainerd, but their members don't just reside in Brainerd. The organizations that are served by Brainerd Community Action are not just located in Brainerd. They are located throughout Crow Wing County. They are located in neighboring communities. So again, the reach and the benefit to the greater community is felt, even though the organizations are based here. Very similar to how the organization of the Arboretum is maybe split between a couple of areas, but the reach is felt much broader than just where that geographic divide is held. Oh, sorry, I'm shaking right now.
You're doing great.
Thank you, Kelly. Sorry, Mr. Bevins.
It's okay.
Also, President
Glad
Bevins.
you're here.
As the Director of Kinship Partners, we are also in collaboration with the Arboretum as part of the Nature Network, which is a coalition of multiple nonprofit organizations with an intention of getting more people outdoors and active, because we know that there's mental health benefits to that. We know there are physical health benefits to that. And it's such an attribute to our community members to build, especially for Kinship Partners, to be able to provide low and no cost opportunities for outdoor activity for our partnerships and for our greater community. And the Arboretum really does support our greater community. They provide valuable green space in the heart of the city. They are the home of Winter Wonderland, as Candace referenced, which have 14,000 visitors that come just through Winter Wonderland, which I will point out is supported by the Sertoma Club of Brainerd. And they support the Sertoma Club, who supports multiple nonprofits within the area through the funds raised through Winter Wonderland at the Arboretum. There's also space at the Brainerd area for kids to learn through ISD 181, whether it's the Nordic Ski Club or through preschool programs. I went there with my niece for preschool for an outdoor activity. And while we may technically be two cities, the line between Brainerd and Baxter is primarily on paper. I mean, how many times do residents drive back and forth and have really no idea where the geographic line ends and begins for Brainerd and Baxter? When I'm shopping or out and about, I'm really not thinking about that I'm crossing the city line. I'm just thinking that I'm getting to and from my destination in my greater community. And when I'm hiking at the Arboretum, I don't consider if the trail I'm on is within one city limit or another. I'm simply enjoying being out in nature in the community my family has called home for now 4 generations. I'm enjoying the land that was once, as I mentioned, the Brainerd City Dump, that my grandpa helped become the place for education, recreation, and conservation that it is today. Now, as a nonprofit director, I can speak to the fact that nonprofits are in a tough business. It's hard to raise money. We get creative, we do what we can with limited resources, and sometimes it's just not enough. Sometimes getting creative it doesn't cut the meat. So we have to end up cutting services, and with fewer services, it gets harder and harder to raise funds. And without funds, our organization dies, and the communities that we serve suffer. So I implore you to please continue the funding for the Arboretum. Executive Director Zimmerman is smart, talented, creative, and passionate about the Arboretum can do and what it does do for our community. We have a very active board of directors for the Arboretum. We have active community support. And I do ask that you, again, please consider funding this incredible community asset and community resource, because it really is about our greater community, not just where the political lines divide. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, come on up. State your name and your home address, please.
My name is Brian Pike. I live at 15872 Jordan Road in Brainerd. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the council members for allowing many of us to speak tonight on this topic. I am the president of the Northland Arboretum. At the Arboretum, we want to build partnerships, not only with the groups and the users of the Arb, but with the city of Brainerd, the city of Baxter, and even Crow Wing County. As president of the Arboretum, I, along with Candace Zimmerman, will work hard to build those strong relationships that support and build the success of the Arboretum. I'd like to touch a little bit on the items that the city of Baxter has provided in relationship to the ongoing discussion about the Arboretum not within the city limits of Brainerd entirely, what Baxter does contribute to the Arboretum. The city of Baxter facilitated and administered a $100,000 Minnesota DNR grant for the Trailhead Building project in 2003. The city of Baxter contributed $50,000 towards the public water, sewer, and street improvements to Conservation Drive in 2003 that normally would have been assessed to the Arboretum as the property owner. The city of Baxter is deferring over $50,000 of special assessments from the 2015 Excelsior Road improvements. So over time, the city of Baxter has contributed financially to the Arboretum. Many in-kind contributions have been provided by the city of Baxter related to the compost site, the storm pond maintenance area, and water quality issues related to the Whiskey Creek that flows through the Arboretum. The city of Baxter is a contributor to the Arboretum, and we strive to maintain and strengthen that relationship and that partnership with Baxter. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming up. Next up, please state your name and home address.
My name is Chuck Albrecht. I live at 10726 East Shore Drive, Merrifield, and I'm the president and CEO of Mid-Minnesota Federal Credit Union with offices located here on South 6th Street. I'd like to express my concerns regarding the decision before the City Council regarding the Northland Arboretum. My concerns have three main points. First, the Arboretum is a unique amenity that Brainerd and the surrounding areas enjoy. Second, possible ramifications if the city adopts the Charter Commission's intent. And third, the conflict of interest in the Charter Commission's proposal. The Northland Arboretum is a distinct green space when compared to other public green space areas within the city of Brainerd. No other parks compare to the natural amenities that are available to the citizens of Brainerd and the surrounding area. No other recreational area partially lies within and adjacent to the city limits. Concerns by the Commission of other entities that citizens enjoy elsewhere in the county or area that may request funding do not border the city limits. Growing up in the area, I remember our family taking their garbage to the Brainerd city dump. I remember seeing the rats and experiencing the terrible odors from the dump. Today, that area has grown over with natural prairie grasses and trees and provides additional amenities of an exercise trail, a place for residents of Brainerd and the surrounding area to take their leaves and wood debris. For 13 years, I was Eagle Scout Board of Review Chairman for our district and saw numerous projects carried out by Boy Scouts from Brainerd within the Arboretum. Schools and other local organizations use the Arboretum throughout the year, yielding up to 25,000 visitors per year to the Arboretum. The largest population of any city or township that may border the Arb is the city of Brainerd. Residents of Brainerd have the most convenient access to the Arb. The Arboretum has existed through the cooperation of Crow Wing County, City of Brainerd, Nature Conservancy, and the Paul Bunyan Arboretum landowners. This cooperation has generated a facility of 420 acres that is available to area residents for educational and recreational activities. The Arboretum actually maintains a trail through property that the City of Brainerd owns in the northeast quadrant. The city limits actually border the east, north, and portion of the west area of the Arb. Presently, the Arb has 38% of its land area within the city limits of Brainerd. If the interpretation of the City Charter Commission stands, the city would no longer be able to collaborate with other entities that may develop projects that benefit the residents of Brainerd. With that being said, the city would have to review its position in funding the Brainerd Lakes Regional County Airport and other areas such as Brainerd Public Utilities, as well as other properties outside the city limits. My final point is that I don't believe the process for the change in the charter was handled in a fair, open, and void of conflict of interest. Two of the members of the Charter Commission, Andrew Sipe and Kevin Yeager, are also on the Park and Recreation Board. At the April 11th meeting, Commissioner Yeager said that the funds not spent from the 1.5% levy would be given to Parks and Rec if there was no one applying for those funds. You can see that recording. It's in the dispatch. Clearly, this is a conflict of interest, and with the absence of the ARB asking for funding, that funding will be going to the Park and Rec Department. I hope that the City Council will review this situation and determine if this is the open and fair process for making changes to our city charter. Members of the commission complain that the city is paying 25% of the budget of the ARB. If the Brainerd city limits cover 38% of the ARB, I would say they're getting a pretty good deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Next up, please state your name and home address.
My name is Dan Lee. I live at 5994 Ojibwa, Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm a board member of the Arboretum. I'm also the vice president of the Arboretum.
Thanks for coming.
I've been coming to Brainerd all my life. My wife and I love it so much that we actually moved up here several years ago, partially for all of the outdoor recreational opportunities, such as at the Northland Arboretum. I'd like to address three specific items, though. First, the Northland Arboretum is one of the rare places which you can provide a wide variety of outdoor activities and educational opportunities year-round. Every season, you can find outdoor activities from hiking to skiing to simply enjoying the gardens and the wildlife. Throughout the year, you also find educational opportunities for almost every age group and interest. Even during the height of the pandemic, it continued to provide virtual nature-based programming through the Arboretum. CLC also uses the Arboretum as a living classroom for research and clinical studies. Second, the Northwind Arboretum serves as a home base for many organizations in the area. Its unique facilities can serve a wide variety of gatherings, from corporate meetings to reunions to weddings. It's not uncommon to have multiple events happening at the same time. When you think of the fall in the area, it's hard not to think about the Haunted Trail at the Arboretum or Sertoma Winter Wonderland in Christmas. We should not discount the value to the community of these activities, which no single Brainerd City Park could ever generate. Finally, I'd like to highlight just a few of the philanthropic activities of the Northwind Arboretum. Each year, the Northwind Arboretum gives other area nonprofit organizations tickets to Northland Arboretum events for distribution to the people less fortunate. The Northwind Arboretum also holds several free events each year for the benefit of the community, such as the annual Arbor Day Festival. This past week, volunteers from the Northwind Arboretum helped with cleanup of Brainerd city parks. In conjunction with Crow Wing County Master Gardeners, last year 140 patio gardens were donated to local charitable organizations, such as the Salvation Army and Port. And last year, in the last 2 years, the Master Gardeners in the Arboretum have grown and distributed over 3,000 pounds, or 1.5 tons, of fresh produce to the Brainerd Salvation Army, right across the street, and Sharing Bread Soup Kitchen. The Northwind Arboretum is an important part of the Brainerd area and the overall community. For over 20 years, Brainerd has recognized the value of the Arboretum through its partial support. Please continue this support, which benefits not only the residents of Brainerd, but the whole community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. You're next. You're on deck.
Hello, my name is Eleanor Burkett, and I live at 757 Holton Avenue in Brainerd, and I've lived here for 14 years now. And some of you may know me from I used to be the chair of the Brainerd Walkable Bikeable City Committee, and I'm now the chair of the Minnesota Master Naturalist Chapter in Brainerd, the Brainerd Lakes area, and I work for the Central Minnesota Council on Aging. And I'm coming here today with my concerns about the funding for the Arboretum because, as you all know, we are a low-income city, and but we still attract people here. And one of the attractions that brought me here was the Arboretum, about having that green space. I've used it every season of the year, and it's there for people to use. And it's also, it doesn't cost a lot of money to use it. People can use it for free, and they can use it for hiking and walking and skiing and snowshoeing and all the other wonderful things. As a master naturalist, we use it as a living classroom, and we were just down there the other day hiking around and talking about Whiskey Creek and the protections and what that does for the city and how it helps protect the Mississippi River. So the other concern is about, an aging population. And what I really would like to see Brainerd focus on and work with is to become a city that really is here for all age groups, whether they be children or elderly or people in between working. And I think having spaces like the Arboretum help us so that we can attract families and we can attract people who want to move up here to retire. If you know my neighborhood at all, it's being highly developed right now, and which is great. And we're seeing lots of new houses being built, but it's also houses for people who are there's families and children's moving in, and dogs and old ladies like me, and all kinds of things that are happening. And the Arboretum is an attraction for people to move to this area. I'm also with the Crowing Energize and Healthy Choices groups there, and we really support the kinds of things that people are able to do at the Arboretum. It gives people an opportunity to increase their health and well-being, and I want to really stress, people just don't move to Brainerd for hospitals and shopping. They move here for other amenities as well, and the Arboretum offers some of those. And I know that because I used to live about an hour north of here, and there aren't a lot of amenities in Cass County, and people would move down to Brainerd. And this is one of the things they talk about is having, there's, the Arboretum there. Also the hospitals and everything else, but the Arboretum is here as well. And so they also have places that are green spaces where they can go easily. I guess what I'm asking today is that the city leadership work with the Arboretum leadership in coming up with a plan that works for everybody and that is fair and is, helps us to be the city that we want to be and to be the kind of city we want to be and have those amenities there for people who come to visit us and also want to live here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. You're next. Don't forget your name and home address.
I won't.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Lee at 5994 Ojibwa Road in Brainerd. And I want to thank you for letting me speak. And I am the president of the Crow Wing County Master Gardeners. So I'm going to speak on topic of what the benefits the Arboretum provides to us, which then in turn provides to the Brainerd residents. It is our home base. It's where we hold our meetings for our 58 members. And it is also the home where many of our larger projects are held. Pre-pandemic, we had classes called G101. They were classes for youth and for adults on how to garden, how to grow their own vegetables. And at the time, we had between 40 and 50 participants. That was in 2019. We couldn't hold it in 2020 or 2021. It's back this year, and we're hoping for as many participants. In the 2020 and 2021, when the pandemic hit us, we had to convert. We had to pivot because we couldn't hold the classes. So what did we do? We used those beds to raise vegetables in our giving garden. And that produce was 3,000 pounds or 6,000 vegetable servings that were donated to Brainerd organizations for help with those people who are food insecure. And the organizations included the Salvation Army, Mid-Minnesota Women's Shelter, Sharing Bread Kitchen, and Crow Wing County Family Services. In addition, last year, we added a third stool, or a third leg to our stool. We added a patio garden program. That patio garden was to provide little container gardens or bedding plants to various people and organizations who did not have space for their own garden or could not afford one or because of health reasons couldn't get out and garden. Those were distributed to Home Instead, Sharing Bread Kitchen, Port Homes, and Mid-Minnesota Women's Shelter. Throughout the years, the Master Gardeners have continuously provided care and maintenance to all the gardens at the Arboretum, regardless of location. While the Master Gardeners may have benefited from this relationship from the Arboretum, it is the residents who are the real recipients from our partnership. I ask you to please continue the current funding of the Northland Arboretum. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Brian Twomley. I live at 15685 Patterson Road in Brainerd, and I'm the president of the Brainerd Nordic Ski Club. Our club grooms the ski trails during the winter months at the Arb, and we consider the Arb our home. The number of participants using the Arb for skiing would be close to 1,000 visitors annually at the Arb for both recreational and various racing events. The ski races include an adult event, several local high school events, and junior high events, as well as an active youth ski program. Schools from other towns have come to host their events at the Arb due to snow and location, but clearly all of these involve local and regional guests. The daily skiers do include local residents, but we have experienced an increase in the number of tourists from the metro and from the region during the last year of good snow and post-COVID activities. The ARB building and the groomed trails themselves all contribute to a tremendous member and visitor draw to the Brainerd area and the ARB itself. The Northland ARB, as I know it as the Brainerd ARB, is a priceless recreational and educational venue in our region. The fact that the ARB is partially within the city limits with affordable access allows all the Brainerd city residents to take advantage of the programs and the functions provided. I would challenge any new entity trying to mirror these programs within the city limits that they would have a financial difficulty making this work. I believe the amounts being requested and discussed are actually a bargain for the city of Brainerd. Finally, I would ask the board to consider continuing the current funding, considering that the ARB is partially within the city limits. And long-term, I would suggest a collaboration between Brainerd, Baxter, and Crow Wing County to figure out a sustainable funding mechanism going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
My name is Chris Shooker. I live at 915 Blair Circle. I am a resident of Brainerd. I'm also a business owner in the Brainerd area. We have an office located in the Brainerd Industrial Park. We have 5 of our employees here, and we consider the Brainerd community our home. I don't have the pedigree that a lot of these people that have spoken in their direct contact with the ARB. I'm just a member. I also feel that Candace is a great representative and is doing a great thing with the ARB. So if I'm here, I'm speaking on behalf of Candace's effort, but I appreciate the ARB and everything that it does. And I feel my perspective as a general user is from the point of, I feel there's a lot of erosion of the Brainerd area and the natural elements, both through digital billboards and helicopter pads and this influence of the cities. And I feel the Arboretum is this barrier that exists that builds this foundation of what our area is, and that is the lakes and everything that the Arboretum represents. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up, and thanks for being brief. Hold on one second. If you're in line, put your hand up. Okay, who's at the end back there? You're the last one, okay? So all right, fair enough, come on up. Please be respectful of those behind you. And state your name and address.
My name is Charles Johnson, 1104 South 8th Street. And I sent a letter to you last week. Was pleased to interchange messages with Mr. O'Day. Thank you very much, sir. And you acknowledged me today. As for this Brainerd taxpayer who's been here for 40 years, I am not alone in saying that I will benefit more from allotting the money to the Arboretum rather than have it to go who knows where that nobody has ever said yet. We don't know. The money's been there. And you heard from me last week, and I'd like to share some of the points that I talked about. The argument about the home of the Arboretum is in the visitor center, and that's in Baxter. The example I gave for you is this City Hall is in Ward 1, Precinct 1. Well, so what would happen if Mr. Pritchett said, I don't owe any business here, or anybody else who's around?
I've tried that already.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
But Brainerd is an entity that has all of its parts within it, all the wards, all of the precincts. And I just would hope that you would treat the Arboretum the same way, whether it's all in Brainerd or not. And like Mr. Trombley just said, I consider this the Brainerd Arboretum. I've never heard anybody refer to it as the Baxter Arboretum. We always get first billing for whatever that's worth. I have heard nothing but, oh, the Brainerd Arboretum, the Northland Arboretum is a gem. We love it. I have never heard anybody say, oh, they're misusing it. They're not using the way they should. Everything we have heard about the Arboretum has been wonderful. I myself walk there plenty of times. I'm a member. Over the last 10 years, I've walked a total of over 200 miles in those trails, summer and winter. So I have been a great, huge enjoyment out of that place. So for me, it comes down to this. Does it make sense at all to take a successful place and say, never mind, we won't need you don't need our money anymore? The Arboretum is indeed successful in every way, not only for Brainerd, but for Baxter, for the Crow Wing County. You heard people talk about how people come up from the cities. It's an amazing place, and I urge you to reconsider and get that funding in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Come on up.
My name is Lou Anderson. I live at 1211 10th Avenue Northeast in Brainerd. I've been there since 1974. I had the opportunity to manage the sour grapes race at the Arboretum for 7 or 8 years, and I just wanted to mention that I talked to several hundred people during that period of time, and most of them said, boy, do we wish we had a facility like this in our community. These were people from throughout Minnesota, a few from outside the state. A very wise man once told me, that would be my father, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I heard people say we've had good cooperation and funding for 20 plus years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're gonna tinker with it, then be very careful about unintended consequences. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Becky Miller. I live at 13163 Plot Road, Deerwood. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to speak, but I did put a few thoughts down.
We saved you a spot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I live 6 miles from Garrison. My phone exchange is Bennetville. My township is Bay Lake, and my address was Deerwood. But when someone asks me where I live, I tell them I live in Brainerd. Brainerd encompasses so much. Okay, so I don't think I can just say that it's just a regional kind of thing. I believe I belong here. I have a group of friends that I've walked or cross-country skied with every week, and we've been meeting for 25 years. After I finish with my activities, I often eat in Brainerd. I do my grocery shopping in Brainerd. Maybe I go to my hairdresser. I go to the bird supply store. All of those things are in Brainerd. I leave my money in Brainerd when I come to the Arboretum. I picked up the Brainerd magazine at the restaurant this weekend, and I opened it up to page 61, and it says Brainerd, Northland Arboretum. So whether everybody here thinks that the Arboretum is in Brainerd, this magazine does. So I would just say, my last page, that the Northland Arb is a tremendous asset to the Brainerd Lakes area, and I believe it would be short-sighted and filled with negative publicity not to consider to support this neighborhood jewel. Please vote with your hearts and support the continued funding of the Arboretum. Thanks
Thanks
so
for
much.
coming over. Come on up. Name and home address, please.
Peggy Serrani, 4612 Michelle Circle in Baxter. But I live in Brainerd, Baxter, because I lived in Brainerd also before I lived in Baxter. I worked at the Arboretum for over 7 years, near and dear to my heart. I just can't believe that you wouldn't want to fund this place. This is why I don't like to get up in front of places like this. It's just so upsetting.
It's okay. Take a break.
Okay. I've been going to the Arboretum since my kids were this tall, and I was a Brainerd resident. We came in the old gate, which is over by the VA, back when the visitor center wasn't even as big as this room. We were greeted by Rudy every time we went there, and he was always happy to teach my kids something. It goes on. These people in here keep teaching our kids. We can't take that away from them. My grandkids come here now. I take them to the Arb. They love going walking. They're only 13 and 10 now, but they started coming here when they were still in strollers. My boys that live out in Fargo, every time they come home, they want to come out to the Arb. It's still in their hearts. Like I said, I worked at the Arb front desk for over 7 years. How I said, I worked at the Arb, and my position was jack of all trades, master of none. I helped every person that came through that door, and we never turned anyone away. If they couldn't pay, they still got to come and enjoy the Arb. So, you know, it's there for everybody, everybody. But obviously, I have a hard time talking when something is so near and dear to my heart. All I can say is before you make a decision not to fund the Arb, put on your hiking boots, get out there and walk the trails. Put on your seating pants and sit and watch what these wonderful people continue to teach our children. You don't know what you're taking away if you take away the Arb. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Come on up.
Hi, my name is April Sandhoff. I live at 12329 71st Avenue Southwest in Motley. So I'm not a Brainerd resident and not even a Crow Wing County resident. But I wanted to respond to what Mr. Anderson said about other communities wishing they had what Brainerd has. I've been married for 46 years, and in those years, I have lived at 17 different addresses, which is pretty unique. I don't think most people have moved that much. I've lived a number of places in Oregon. I've lived through California, Arizona, Michigan, and I've lived through other communities in Minnesota. And in all of those places I've lived, there's no place I have ever lived where I have found the jewel that the Arboretum is to the Brainerd community. And I would hate to see the funding to the Arboretum lost because it's very, very special and unique that most communities do not have. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. And
good evening. Thank you for being such good listeners. I'm Sally Bergerud. I come from Bacchus and Cass County. Many years ago, I did spend a short time where I did live within the Brainerd, but I have a granddaughter who's 7 who lives at 755 Bryan Lane, and she loves the Arboretum, and she told me that it's where everybody in Brainerd belongs. It doesn't matter if you like Trump or if you like Biden, because the people there that like to ski, some of them like Trump, and some of them like Biden, because the earth is our friend. So I just think it's a community building, and that, I guess she spoke to the fact that it's a community building and a community builder. So your politics can be different, your money that you earn can be different, the taxes that you pay can be different, but when you're there, you're all part of Brainerd, and you're having a great time, and the earth is your friend. So,
thank you.
that's from Joe Seberg.
Okay, you can't clap. I know you all want to. All right. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate those of you that gave testimony. I'm absolutely positive we could continue this on all night. I'm not sure that that would be beneficial. I hope if you didn't get to speak, that at least you feel your voice was heard and somebody expressed what you were thinking. I'm sorry we didn't get the chance to listen to you all, but it's probably not beneficial to go till midnight, 3 in the morning. We've actually done that before. Okay, so we're going to stop taking public testimony. I think we all understand where at least the people that spoke are coming from. Anybody on the council not understand the issue or not understand what the Charter Commission responded to our request. Any questions about that? Okay, then we don't have to make a decision this evening, but we have a response from the RFP from the Northland Arboretum requesting our green space money. We've sent it back to the Charter Commission. Charter Commission has responded. Now's the time that if we choose.
Bless you.
Okay? If we, that must have been somebody online. Okay, you okay? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I got it.
Okay, I'm looking down here, Chief. I never call on Tiffany. I never. As a matter of fact, I sometimes
You're
agree.
throwing me to the curb?
Yeah, you're old.
Paul, fix that.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna turn it to Tiffany. You can second her motion if you choose.
about it? No.
Do you two want a minute together, or we could shut the lights off or something, turn the cameras off?
Mr. President, I move that the city enter into an agreement to allocate or provide the charter designated funds for a green space or arboretum to Northland Arboretum through December 2023.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. So your motion is to enter into an agreement through 2023, which is,
A little over a year and a half,
yeah, okay, about a year and a half.
with the idea that we could go to we could do a request for proposal process again in June of next year, if I'm allowed to speak on it now,
Okay,
and have plenty of time to do that, getting ready for 2024.
okay. Mr. Pritchett, that's the motion. Comments? Mr. Stunek, you had something.
Oh, yeah.
I know. Was it better?
Could I add, no, I would support that.
Okay.
Could I make an amendment to her that?
You absolutely can.
I would like to,
If you
I
get a
would support
second.
that. However, I would like to see that we form some kind of a work group with the county, Baxter, Brainerd, and the ARB, so we don't have to go through this again. And I'd like to add that to the motion.
Okay, okay,
I'll second that amendment to the motion.
okay.
I was gonna make that amendment.
I was gonna suggest that that be a secondary motion, but we have a motion to amend the motion by Stunek to put together this work group, seconded by Gabe Johnson. So we're gonna discuss just the amendment on the work group. Okay? Anybody have a comment on the work group? Mr. Pritchett?
I think when you look at it, it's a needed segment to address the larger problem and make sure that we don't run into this situation again.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
The same, we've been giving them money for 20 years, hoping they would get a work group or something long-term figured out, and it hasn't happened. So I think if we work together with the county and everybody to figure something out instead of just depending on them to figure out, I think this work group could be a very good idea. And I think it could get them back being arboretum-focused more so than event-focused, to be an arboretum for the area.
Excellent. Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we have a motion by Stunek, a second by Johnson to amend the motion to create the work group. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So that motion carries. We're back to the amended motion from Tiffany, second by Pritchett, to fund the Arboretum.
The operation of the Arboretum.
The Arboretum through the next year and a half, through the end of December. Any discussion on that? Any discussion on that, Mr. Johnson?
I'm going to vote no. I think it does violate state law. I think it violates city charter. I do think it is an illegal donation to a nonprofit that we are not legally allowed to make as much as we would want to do it. I'll just read their proposal here on how they would be spending our money for an arboretum and green space in the city of Brainerd.
Thank you.
And they said, we had been very grateful for the city of Brainerd funding, especially during the pandemic when significant revenue streams were taken away from us. For the most part, Brainerd funding is used to keep our visitor center accessible to Brainerd residents and visitors, provide staff capacity so we can create great recreational and educational experiences surrounding nature. Maintaining a 12,000 square foot visitor center is no easy feat. Most organizations have seen an increase in utilities, insurance, general maintenance, and supplies. Not to mention the current job market and having to retain excellent staff while competing with wages, benefits that are beyond any nonprofit capabilities. Being able to depend on the City of Brainerd for funding provided by Brainerd residents has meant we can budget our staff, maintenance, and other educational programming appropriately, regardless of how the pandemic affected other revenue streams. And I just think that's clearly funding a multi-million-dollar wedding event center in the city of Baxter and does not fit within our charter, and it doesn't fit within what any state law would allow a municipal government to do.
Okay.
So that's why I'm going to vote no. Can we have order in here, Kelly?
Hold up that listen sign. Turn it around so the people in the audience can see it. Thank you. Look at, no, do it again, please. They need it again. Thank you. See that? Be respectful, as we were respectful of you.
Didn't
when
groan
you
at
spoke.
any of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Johnson.
That was not neighborly. The groaning was not neighborly, I will add.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. Okay, Mr. Erickson.
So, thank you, Mr. President. As a steward of Brainerd public funds, I'm also not going to support the motion. I think that the city needs to get out of the business of funding select nonprofits. There's a lot of nonprofits in the community. This isn't to speak against any one particular nonprofit, but for the city to be using public funds to be funding select nonprofits, I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Pritchett, and then Mr. O'Day.
You know, when I look at it, I respect what Councilman Erickson and Councilman Johnson have said. I would say it's a risk I'm willing to take if it's illegal. I believe that it adds quite a bit to the quality of life. I would like to see us move forward for other funding streams, and that's pretty much what I got to say.
Thank you. Chairman O'Day.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I let everybody else speak. Obviously, most of you probably know how I feel on this one. I sent a letter to the charter. I am on the charter. I am a voting member of the charter. So yeah, I did give my opinion on this. I don't think that anything that has been built in the Arboretum is in Brainerd. I also don't think that the Arboretum is going to disappear if our funding is lost. I think they will have to be creative. I think the Arboretum has means to do that. You have a lot of people in here that are very supportive of the Arboretum. Some of them are in Brainerd, and they're probably not gonna like me on this one for this. But every single person that I talk to face-to-face, that's not in a meeting, that's not willing to say it publicly, that's in Brainerd, I haven't come across one that thought that I was wrong with those comments. That's my own personal experience. I didn't know how the rest of the council was gonna feel about this. I've heard you, I've heard all of you. You make great points that the Arboretum is an awesome place. I don't want to see it disappear. I just don't think that the city, or any city, clearly no other city, is in the business of funding the Arboretum. The Arboretum should be very low maintenance. There's a lot of other stuff going on at the Arboretum that isn't necessarily an Arboretum program. Is it part of a green space program? Possibly, we could consider that. No one else has really put out an RFP. We have no idea where that money's gonna go. But my argument is that we have a lot of other spaces in this town that need attention. And the Arboretum has gotten a lot of attention for 20 years. They were around for 30 years before that without that funding, and they didn't disappear. So I am going to vote no on this, and that's where I stand.
Thanks, Mr. O'Day. Honorable Mayor Bedeau, you have comments, even though we don't let you vote?
Yeah, so
With
first
good reason.
of all, I don't get to vote, so nothing that I say matters. Also, I just want to say that I'm not wearing a tie for all of you wonderful individuals. It is Paul Sandy's last meeting with us, and Paul always dresses up, so I put a tie on for Paul. I just want to speak very, very briefly about the process that we went through, and it'll speak to you directly, Candace. As an executive director of a nonprofit that went through the exact same thing, I understand the stress that was involved with this process, and I understand how difficult it is to look for funding and to try and figure out solutions. I don't necessarily have a lot of issue with the Arboretum itself, but I do have a problem with the proposal. And my problem with the proposal is that I heard you speak and say that this is something that just popped up out of nowhere. And it wasn't. These were 10-year contracts. These were contracts that had expiration dates on them. And they had expiration dates on them when they were signed. And that happened 10 years ago. And this is not directed at you. This is more so directed at your board of directors. And my remarks are very specifically not to chastise or to point the finger, but rather to challenge. If I was an organization that had 25% of my funding tied up into a very specific source, I would be paying a lot of attention to what is happening when that funding comes up. And when that funding came up, it was not a surprise. These were contracts that had an end date. This was a process that happened. Yes, the charter amendments happened. I understand that. But these were things that were coming up. And my issue is not with the fact that you have a proposal, but it's with what happened in the proposal. Because there were very specific things presented within those RFPs. And it said what the new charter language was. And very specifically in there, it said, in the city limits of Brainerd. And as an organization, there needs to be some kind of address to that. And I find it interesting that Councilman Johnson brought up the language that he did, because I highlighted 2 sections in your proposal. One happens to be the exact same section, so I won't spend a lot of time. But the question at hand is describe how the funding from the city of Brainerd will be used. And I highlighted, for the most part, Brainerd funding will be used to keep the visitor center accessible. Again, skipping ahead a little bit, but maintaining a 12,000 square foot visitor center is no easy feat. Right away, I question why that your proposal is so heavy front on a building. And it continues when you get into right at the very beginning of your proposal. A narrative describing the organization's mission, vision, and goals. You start off really strong talking about education. And you talk about Harrison Elementary, Discovery Woods, and Garfield. Give me a second, sir. Thank you. I don't have a vote. I have a voice. That's all I get. You start very strongly talking about education, Harrison, Discovery Woods, and Garfield, but you have identified, our strategic plan identified several gaps in our programming. And the second thing you list is improvements to our key infrastructure is a key goal. One such resource is a dire need of repair and replacement is the maintenance building. And that's why this is that question. It's not that people don't want to support the Arboretum. It's that when asked to support yourselves, your response was, we want to put money back into our buildings. And the RFP is for green space. And so I don't question the Arboretum, I question your response in the proposal. And so when this stuff comes up and when these questions are asked, I don't blame the council for asking the same questions that they are. I support you guys and I support what you're doing, but as a city, there is a responsibility to the taxpayers and there's a responsibility to be fiducially responsible. And with this, there's questions that are arised. So I took a little bit of offense to the idea that this somehow popped up out of nowhere. And I just want to challenge, not to you, Candace, because I really appreciate a lot of the language that's in here, but to your board of directors. You didn't put her in a very good position. You didn't put your new executive director in a very good position to present a proposal that this city says, slam dunk, let's go. And so whether or not the council decides to fund or not, I just want to challenge the board of directors at the Arboretum to understand what the council is actually asking. And what they're asking is to see better explanation of how this fits what the city is looking to do with that funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gabe, you've spoke. Chief, you're up. Tiffany, you're next. Then we're going to vote.
I would just like to say we made the motion to fund through the end of 2023 with the attention on creating a work group to come up with a lot of the same issues that the council has just talked about. So it's just a year and a half. Let them do their work. I think they've heard what we said. Work with the county, work with Baxter, work with Brainerd and the ARB, and let's get this thing fixed again.
Thanks, Chief. Tiffany, anything you want to add to your motion?
Nope.
Okay, anybody have an objection to roll call? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
No.
O'Day.
No.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Nope.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stengline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes. Okay, that motion passes. We will move on. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I know y'all want to stay. Chief Holmes, can you lock the doors? If you're going to leave, please do so quickly and quietly. We'll take 5. Well, and it wasn't really pertinent to the motion. Kind of.
Neighborly.
I understand. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you, sorry for all the stress.
I figured out what you were saying.
Oh, no. See, I didn't hear that part. I mean, I didn't listen. Yeah.
You came right out and discussed it. Because you can't have the farms.
Oh, no, you can't, not at all. And you know that as well as I do.
So if I
the approval of hiring the temporary workers for the summer, and I so move approval.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Johnson, second by Stengline. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Next action is a CSO resignation, and motion is to, the motion is to accept CSO Janie Ziegler's resignation with regret and authorize filling the vacancy at the current rate of $16 per hour, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next up is ratifying the hiring of Community Service Officer Richard Berry, and the motion is to ratify the hiring of the new Community Service Officer Richard Berry, starting at $16 with an effective date of April 29th, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stengline. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Okay, the next one is a retirement from the water plant. It's our first BPU employee action, and the motion is to accept resignation of water plant operator Lynn Germain, effective June 30th, 2022, further to authorize staff to backfill the position, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any discussion?
No.
Nope. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
I actually have a 12th item. We had one in between that. We got sick of dealing with BPU items by that point, so we have another motion, which is to send any routine public utility commission backfilling or retirement acceptance to the consent calendar, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stengline. Any discussion, Mr. Chairman
So
Johnson?
this just as a motion of process, these three items that we have on the agenda today were acted on by the Public Utility Commission already. So instead of it going from that commission to P&F to council, we're just gonna put it right on the consent calendar since that commission who is running that department has already made the decision they need to backfill those positions.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you. The next one is considering a reinstatement of vacant water plant relief operator laborer. And the motion is to approve the attached water plant relief operator laborer job description as presented, to direct staff to submit the water plant relief operator laborer job description to DDA to determine pay equity points, and finally to direct staff to begin wage negotiations with IBEW Local Number 31 BPU Union for this position, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, a second by Stunek. Chairman Johnson.
This is a position they had for years, then they reorganized a little bit and didn't backfill it years ago. They're starting to run into some overtime problems and really would like to have that position back, so we're reinstating it. This type of action would not go to the consent calendar. Anytime we're adding a position or reinstating an old position, it will come to the council for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Chairman Johnson, I have a question. With the inequity with BPU salaries and the rest of the city of Brainerd, will this come in at a more in-line dollars? Will the dollars and cents be reevaluated? Or will it be reinstated at 17% above every other city?
It will go in with the current IBEW 31 contract that is higher administratively, but this isn't an administrative position. It's a water operator.
I just know in the past you've been an advocate for equalization between the city of Brainerd and the other city employees at BPU.
I love equity, I love equality, but it's going to be done through union negotiations. It's not going to be done one job at a time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you. Next up is approve a personal leave of absence for BPU Accountant 1 Chelsea Fisher, and the motion is to approve the personal leave of absence as requested by BPU Accountant 1 Chelsea Fisher that will begin on or around May 9th and will last up to, but not longer than 12 weeks, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stengline. Any discussion? Chairman Johnson.
This employee hasn't been here long enough to have the built up vacation time, and she's going on maternity leave, so she's going to have to take it without pay, but we do have an intern there who can handle the work while she's gone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next up is an update on the City Engineer Public Works Director hiring process, and the motion is to approve the attached City Engineer Public Works Director position profile and hiring timeline. Further, to designate council members O'Day and Johnson to serve as council representatives on the City Engineer Public Works Director interview panel, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stunek. Delayed second by Stunek. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you. Next up is to consider a proposal to provide professional engineering services from WSB, and the motion is to authorize staff to enter into an agreement with WSB for professional engineering services for an interim city engineer, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stingline. Any discussion? Chairman Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So this interim city engineer, his name will be Paul.
Do I have to continue wearing a tie?
WSB has determined he could do the job of city engineer and public works director in 16 hours a week, apparently. And this cost will come in at about $18,000 for the contract if our hiring timeline works out. And we currently have budgeted for the current city engineer public works director salary $47,000. So we'll find the money to pay for it in the cost savings of having the employee on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Ties will be mandatory. All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Please continue.
Next up is a consideration of a school resource officer contract with Independent School District number 181. And the motion is to authorize the signatures and enter into proposed school resource officer service agreement between the City of Brainerd and Independent School District number 181 as presented, and I so move.
Motion by Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stangline. Any discussion? Chairman Johnson?
I think if you look at the memo, you'll see that the rates are getting closer and closer, and maybe this year we are actually meeting what our actually city costs for a school resource officer are. Over the last 5 years, we've gone from 52 all the way up to next year will be $89,000 for the school resource officer. So we're getting paid what it costs us to have a police officer, so that's good. And the school board had already approved it, so it's good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any further discussion on the school resource officer? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next up is to consider deferment of assessments for year 2022 and discussion of policy. The motion is to defer the assessment payable in 2022 for applicant PID 412-50875, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Mr. Chairman Johnson?
This applicant is a fully disabled veteran, so he's exempt from payroll taxes, from real estate taxes, but not exempt from street assessments. So we hit him with an assessment that he's now asking to be deferred on, and we're going to defer that assessment just like he's exempt from property taxes. We'll get it on the back end. And then we had discussion about what we should do with the deferment policy. Like, we look at it every couple of years, and staff's going to bring some recommendations back within the next couple of meetings, and we'll look at changes to that policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any further discussion on the deferment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last item on my agenda is about this August 16th, 2021 formal request we made to Lakes Area Media Collaborative to be refunded of all of the money we sent them that they did not use providing a service. And the update is there is no update. Thank you, Mr. President. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will move on to Safety and Public Works Chairman Mike O'Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm waiting for the day. I'm waiting. One of these days, he's going to be like,
show me the money.
He wrote.
Pay for the art.
We had 9 items tonight. First of which was an event street closure application for Memorial Day Parade and ceremonies. This will be on Memorial Day. Starts at the Laurel Street Bridge, moves over to the All Veterans Memorial, then into Northeast with a parade into Evergreen Cemetery. This goes all the way from 9 a.m. to about 11 a.m. Motion coming out of committee was approval of the attached application under the conditions listed on the application, and I so move.
Second, Erickson.
We have a motion by O'Day, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Next item was event application for the Corpus Christi Procession. This is where the good Catholics start from St. Francis Church and make their way in a procession all the way over to St. Andrews. This will be on June 19th, 2022. They'll just need a little help crossing some of those busier streets like Washington. They'll have a little bit of music. They've done this before, no problem. So a motion coming out of committee was to approve the attached application under the conditions listed in the attached event application. I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Please proceed.
Third item was our last event street closure application for Brainerd JC's Street Fest. This is on July 22nd. They're having a street closure on Front Street between 6th and 8th from noon until the next day at midnight. This is something that's gone on for years. It's been in that parking lot for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. Not much difference from the last few years. Event approval. Motion coming out of committee was approval of the attached event street closure application under the conditions listed in the application, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Fourth item was the approval of bids for the improvement 22-07 East River Road improvements. This is the portion of East River Road where we're adding diagonal parking during the same summer as the new park being put in as a trailhead down that hill. I'm just going to fill you in quick. I was asking Paul if we're doing these at the same time. It sounds like we're going to do the park to start off with, but we're going to hold off on the street, on the road project until after the 4th of July. But bids came in and motion coming out of committee, it was the same company as the park. Motion coming out of committee was approval of the bid from Custom Builders, Inc. in the total roadway cost of $517,618.47 and authorizing proper signatures on the agreement documents with Custom Builders, Inc. for the proposed construction. I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Mr. Chair, who is Custom Builders? I've never heard of them. Are they new to the game?
Sure. Paul would probably know more than I would, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being that a lot of the work is the park project, I'm sure they have a lot of the work subcontracted, so you'll see probably Anderson Brothers and different entities down there. The Custom Builders is more of the park builder.
Oh, okay.
So they're the general, yep.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Please proceed.
Item 5 was approval of a bridge inspection proposal from Bolton and Mink. We set aside, $4,000 or $5,000 every couple of years. Bids came in between $3,500 and $2,400. Bolton and Mink was the $2,400. Not only are they the cheapest, but they did it last time. We trust them. So we went with this bid. Motion out of committee was approval of Bolton and Mink's proposal for biannual bridge inspection services in the total fee of $2,400 and authorizing proper signatures on the agreement documents for the proposed work scope. And I so move.
Second.
Motion from O'Day, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
Number 6 was a contract towing bid from Collins Brothers, weighing against West Brainerd Auto. And we found some differences in these two contracts, mainly in the last few items down the bottom. They were almost identical in everything other than the fact that Collins Brothers does provide semi-wrecker towing and winching, which is a service for obviously larger trucks. West Brainerd did not. The prices for standby hourly rate fee, no keys fee, and drop fee, which would partially or fully be put right onto the customer and or citizen being towed, were much cheaper in comparison with Collins Brothers. So those two things being the difference, motion coming out of committee was to approve the bid from Collins Brothers Towing of Brainerd and authorize signatures on the agreement with Collins Brothers for the proposed scope of services, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? As per usual, being the bids were similar, I will vote against the motion in favor of the Brainerd Company. Thank you. Any further discussion?
I will comment.
Oh, no, yeah.
I did ask Paul since this was the first year we used Collins Brothers, I asked if there were any issues that did come up. He said maybe there were a couple things that came up, but they made it right by the city right away when it was brought to them. There were some slight changes in the contract to hopefully help smooth some of that stuff out if there was any issue. But that doesn't change the fact that they're not within the city limits of Brainerd, does it?
And it doesn't change the fact that we had to catch them raising their prices.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that isn't fair. If you bid something, I didn't want to bring this up, but if you bid something, it's your responsibility to follow the bid, whether you're in Brainerd, Baxter, or Motley. This company had the bid for the very first time last year, and we caught them, I caught them triple billing over and above what they had bid on the contract. If you think that's fair, then you're voting for the right company. But that never was a problem with West Brainerd for decades before. So I mean, I didn't want to bring that up because it seems they did work it out. But I'm not sure it's fair to say that they were above board about it, and they weren't. So, I've used both of these companies before. I just think that it's just not. I'll stick by my original objection. All things being equal, I think we go with the Brainerd Company. Thank you. Go ahead.
For consistency's sake tonight, not knowing what you just told me, I will stick to being within Brainerd city limits, and I will also vote against my own motion.
I think it's the way it should be. Thank you. Any further discussion? So the motion is, coming out of committee, to vote for Collins Brothers. I think we'll call the roll on this one, Administrator Bergman.
All right. Erickson.
No.
O'Day.
No.
Stunek.
No.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
No.
Stingline.
No.
It is a 6-1 vote, or 1-6.
Care to try again?
I will motion to enter into a contract with West Brainerd. And find the wording on this one again. Hang on a second here. I will motion to approve the bid from West Brainerd Towing of Brainerd and authorize signatures on the agreement with West Brainerd for the proposed scope of services. So moved.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Please proceed.
All right, next item was the kind of an exciting one. Number 7 was the State Park Road Account Grant Application. If you guys remember, about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, we motioned to send, I think, $5,000 over to Widseth to come up with a grant proposal for a State Park Roads, what is it? SPRA? Account. Grant for the road going all the way from 210 into the landing at Lum Park. And the proposal was for $143,000. It comes back at a fully funded amount of $143,000. Apparently they like Lum Park. So motion coming out of committee was to motion to authorize staff to solicit an RFP for the project and work with MnDOT, state aid, and seek Crow Wing County sponsorship, which is a requirement for this grant. And I so move.
I have a motion by O'Day. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Erickson. Any discussion? Any discussion?
I will mention one thing, I guess.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
We talked about maybe just sending it to Widseth. They've done all the design work with the park. They've done our grant writing, but as it's public funds, we're hoping Widseth comes back at a reasonable request or proposal and give them the benefit of the doubt even if they're not the lowest. I'll just say that going forward, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed.
All right, next item, number 8, was a direction on active code enforcement cases. Sean, if you wouldn't mind pulling up a picture. So we have one that has not gone through the process of 3 citations, but this is a specific example of something that is considered a health and safety hazard. We have received complaints. They have received 1 citation since we started this new process. And last year, they did this same exact thing and had to be abated twice. There's some discussion on whether or not they do this because it's cheaper than paying for regular garbage services. We don't know yet, but we're gonna try to figure that out. But the motion coming out of committee, instead of allowing this to become more of a health and hazard issue, was to immediately abate and change the citation for the initial citation for issues deemed health and safety hazards to $300 instead of $100, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by O'Day, second by Pritchett. Any discussion?
I just have a question, Mr. President, because I remember amending section 320, and it used to say fines will be set by resolution, and those are easy to change. But this new section 320, they're not set by resolution anymore. We put the dollar amounts in the ordinance. So we can't just pick a fee. We have to follow the ordinance. So I'm going to vote against the motion because while I want this abated and it looks like a serious health problem, we are violating our own ordinance that we just passed by changing the fee on the first fine. I think we'd need to have 2 separate motions and start the process of amending the amended ordinance.
Excellent point. But that's not what we have.
Not what we have.
Mr. Erickson.
So as I understand, and I have a question of staff to maybe explain the reason why I think we're able to assign a fee for this is because of the health issue. Mr. President, if I could direct that to James.
You absolutely can.
I could do some further review, but I believe the way the process is set up is if it's a complaint by a neighbor, we follow the standard $100, $200, $300 fee process and then bring it to council to determine our Safety and Public Works Committee. There is an option if we think it needs to be brought before the Safety and Public Works Committee, potentially because of safety and public health, that it can be brought before them to make a determination. And I believe the Safety and Public Works Committee has 3 options to go from there, essentially set a fine at a determined amount, abate the process, or potentially leave the nuisance as is.
Thank you. Otherwise, I would agree with your assessment of that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, the motion? Are you asking me to change the motion?
No, just read it.
Just asking for the motion.
reread
Okay. The motion is to immediately abate and to change, immediately abate 1306 Oak Street of the health and safety hazard, and to change the initial citation for health and safety hazards from $100 to $300 initially.
Thank you, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Motion carries. Please proceed.
All right, final item for Safety and Public Works tonight was content review of section 725 of the Brainerd City Code. I would love to explain all the details of this, but I would also even more so love to give Paul Sandy one last chance to talk about storm sewers.
Engineer Sandy, Public Works Director Sandy, WSB.
Only 40 pages.
Employee of the Month Sandy, and our new, whatever we've hired.
Interim city
Interim, yeah.
Second best tie of the night.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. So I went into a little bit of detail at the Safety and Public Works Committee meeting. The real content of this ordinance hasn't changed. The major changes to this were when certain stormwater plans, so a developer would submit a stormwater plan to us. Two different instances. One is basically between that 5,000 square foot disturbed area and 1 acre, and the other plan being an acre or greater. It goes into great detail about those two plans and what the plan should consist of. The other major change from a performance standard standpoint, from stormwater basins or stormwater features, those didn't change from our last ordinance. However, the new ordinance focuses more on what we call better site design. And that really focuses on, keeping open space, reduction of impervious surface, and runoff minimization, rather than old ordinance, which just kind of focused on on-site stormwater retention and post-construction stormwater rates. So this new ordinance really says, you should look at these things first before you look at retaining water on site. So keeping open spaces that naturally filtrate water, keeping impervious surface to a minimum, so you're trying to optimize your site rather than building your site out to 100% impervious and then retaining the required amount of stormwater on site. That's the big, huge, portion of this ordinance. That's the big change. There's some other sections like application review. There's a financial security section that would require developers that enter into an agreement with the city to put down a financial security deposit, so that if something happens where they were, inevitably go belly up or something of that nature, that we would have something in our pocket to restore the site to reduce or minimize the effect that it has on our natural environment. It has stormwater maintenance agreements, what those should consist of. Right of entry and inspection gives the city the right to go and inspect stormwater features. There's an illicit discharge section which takes over for section 720. So the intent of this ordinance is to get rid of section 720 and 725 and combine it all into one new section 725. Section 430 of our stormwater ordinances will still remain in place.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Mr. Chair.
So this was just a discussion item tonight. We weren't looking for a motion. We actually just sent that back to staff to come back with an ordinance change in 2 weeks. I believe it's coming back to SPW, which will be a recommendation to the council, but there is 40 pages of great reading in there. If you guys want to check out that language and make sure, Mr. Johnson.
I just make sure
okay.
Joe's not going to prison. He's free.
What?
End of report.
Is he part of the vegetated or grassy
He just threw
swale?
you into the storm sewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are moving on to item 9, unfinished business. 9A is proposed ordinance 1529, an ordinance amending section 1200 of the Brainerd City Code pertaining to intoxicating liquor. And this is, who is this? Connie?
Eating liquor?
Yes.
I have nothing
Connie,
to add.
so anything you wish to add to what's in our packet?
Just to reiterate, this is so that one person can hold more than one Class 2 or Class 3 liquor licenses within the city limits of Brainerd.
Excellent. Any questions of Finance Director Hillman? Hearing none, we're looking for a motion to hold and dispense with the final reading of ordinance 1529.
So moved, Johnson.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will remind you that this must pass unanimously, or we're reading the entire ordinance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is we will open the public hearing at 43 on proposed ordinance 1529, and ask if anybody in the public, in the audience, wishes to speak on this or online. If you want to speak on it online, *3 notifies us that you wish to speak, and then we'll let you know, and *6 unmute you. Is anybody online, John? There are. So if you're online and you wish to speak on this ordinance or proposed ordinance, please hit *3 so we know you want to. I see none. Anybody in the audience? I see none. We will close the public hearing at 9:44, and we will look for a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 1529.
So moved, Johnson.
Motion by Johnson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Stengline.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that ordinance is adopted. Unless we want to do funding of the Arboretum again, we'll skip that since we've already done it and go on to item 9C. This is a public hearing and resolution on a petition to vacate the alley submitted by My Neighbor to Love Alley Blocks M and E in West Brainerd. And this is City Engineer, Public Works Director Sandy. Anything you wish to add?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So
Thank you.
Tonight, we are, in front of us is a petition that you guys had adopted a resolution that declared its sufficiency, which means it has enough signatures. Tonight, we're taking testimony for or against that proposed vacating of those alleys. City staff, the city attorney and I have reviewed this. Being that the property likely becomes more developable with these alleys being vacated and the current zoning, and there's no underlying utilities at this time, we are recommending that the vacation of those undeveloped alleys be approved at this time. But you got a couple things in front of you right now. That's a public hearing first, and then make action on that proposed vacation or adopting the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Any questions of Mr. Sandy on what's before us? Hearing none, we will hold a public hearing to hold testimony for or against the proposed vacation as submitted. I will open the public hearing at 9:45, and if there's anybody in the audience that wishes to speak, and that includes online, remember *3 lets us know that you wish to speak on the vacation of the alley. Second call to speak on vacation of the alley. Final call to speak on vacation of the alley. We will close the public hearing at 9:46. Staff is recommending adoption of the attached resolution. What is the council's pleasure?
Move to approve.
Motion by Pritchett. Is there a second? Second by Stengline. Any discussion? Any discussion? Chairman O'Day.
I have just a quick question, neither for nor against. In discussion a couple weeks ago, it was mentioned that this might be a questionable move because there is no plan in front of us. And then that changed sometime between the 2 weeks ago and this meeting here. So I'm just, for the record,
I think I recall that as well.
So the discussion was that once the city does vacate the alley, it's gone forever. Maybe it's no big deal. The good thing is maybe that developer has more freedom to design. But on the contrary, it was said that once that's gone, it's gone, and if we lose access to something, we can't get it back.
Engineer Sandy, staff is recommending this. Any comments on?
Yeah, so after we had met, Joe and I talked about this in detail, and a general good rule of thumb is if the proposed vacation in general makes the property more developable in the current zoning, then it's generally good practice to do that. And whether that's not part of this discussion tonight is what plans are available. It's just what is the council's desire as far as the vacation is concerned. So, Joe, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Just point out, Mayor and Council, that all vacations are completely discretionary by the City Council. So they've made the petition, they started that process, the statutory process. Now it's up to the council to decide whether to proceed with it. And yes, as Paul's indicated, typically in a situation like this where you've got a platted alley that's never been improved, there are no utilities, there's no intent to ever put a utility there. If the city is looking to promote development of any kind, then this is not necessarily a bad idea to vacate these alleys and make the land more developable.
Mr. O'Day, you okay?
Yeah, that answers my question.
Anybody else have any comments? Chairman Johnson?
I'm not comfortable vacating anything without an actual plan of what's going to happen with that land, so I'm just going to vote no until we unless we can get a plan on what's going to go in there. Generally, I think you're right, staff, and generally, if we had a plan, I would be perfectly fine with this vacation because it is unimproved, there are no utilities, all that. But since there is no plan, I'm hesitant. So I will be voting no.
Thank you.
President,
Yeah, Ted Erickson.
I'm hesitant as well, given the permanence of vacating the alley, so I'm going to vote against it as well.
Okay. I'm gonna vote in favor of it. They own both pieces of property on both sides. So, and they are giving us the right for reserved easements for utility purposes. So they own both pieces, you know, what the heck. Mr. Bordeaux had his hand up, and then we'll give round 2 to Mr. O'Day.
Just a basic comment, because I like to comment on things that I enjoy. I like alleys, so I just want to make sure that the mayor is on record as saying, I like alleys, we should have alleys.
But not parking lots.
Chairman O'Day.
I guess knowing that there's a couple others voting no, I will also be voting no. I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but I think instead of putting the cart before the horse, let's just have a plan. That's kind of the way I first heard it, so that's the way I'm going to vote.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
All right, Erickson.
No.
O'Day?
No.
Stunek?
Nope.
Johnson?
No.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Stingline?
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion fails. Anybody else care to make a stab? Hearing none, please move on. Oh, we're up. We're not in anything. All right, I'm next. Committee recommendations, item 9D, Mayor Bordeaux.
Well, now that I'm on record as liking alleys, I will also say that suit jackets are sweaty. My gosh, holy Hannah, the mayor's dying over here. Get me a fan. Okay, this is committee recommendations, please, if you will. I have one recommendation, one David Haynes for the Rental Dwelling License Board of Appeals.
We have a recommendation by Mayor Bordeaux for the Rental License Board of Appeals. Is there a motion to approve?
So move Johnson.
Second, Bridget.
All right, motion by Johnson, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Mayor Bordeaux.
This does leave 2 seats, I believe, available, so it's a hot ticket item, get involved.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Please proceed with your call for applicants.
Here we go.
Dad.
All right, number E. Call for applicants. Information, as always, available www.ci.brainerd.mn.us/boards/. We have the following terms available that expire on 12/31 of said year. Cable TV Advisory Committee, wow, that's tough. 2 terms expiring 2022, 1 term expiring 2024. Charter Commission, 1 term expiring 2022. We heard all about that today. 1 term expiring 2025, just in time. Rental Dwelling License Board of Appeals. This says 3 terms. You are incorrect. There are 2 terms expiring 2022. I also have 2 spots for the Economic Development Authority, both expiring on 9/7 of said year. 1 term expiring 2022, 1 term expiring 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No lengthy explanation as to the odd start date for the EDA?
You know,
the former mayor used to take a long time to explain that.
My former mayor, like,
all remember.
Really enjoyed
Wilder
to comment on why we selected the 9th of September, excuse me, the 7th of September. To spin a long yarn, the reason why we have this committee starting on this date is because that's when it started.
All right. Blame that on the Arboretum, I suppose. Next up is, as council president, I have one position on the planning commission to expire 2023. We have 1 position on the water tower fundraising ad hoc committee. Item 10 is new business. 10A is consideration of a conditional use permit for an auto body shop at 124 8th Avenue Northeast. This is by our assistant planner, James Krambeck. James, anything you wish to add to what's in our packet?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple brief notes here. This property is located in a B4, which requires a conditional use permit to operate an auto body shop. The applicant is primarily proposing facade improvements, as well as interior improvements. Another thing we discussed is there'd be screening from a screened fence of any inoperable damaged vehicles. So with that, Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the CUP request without adding any conditions.
Thank you. Any questions of our assistant planner, Chairman Johnson?
Mr. President, just one question. Is the activity going to disrupt neighboring uses like the ECFE or the funeral home, or is there enough parking lots there to kind of buffer everything? And just asking the question since this is the time to ask it.
Yep, you know, we did send letters out to, it'd be to those businesses. Nobody did come to speak at the public hearing for that part of it. I believe the applicant is here. He might be able to answer about some of the interior stuff that goes on, but there will be, you know, certain requirements for MPCA stuff, as well as some review from the fire marshal as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm satisfied.
Okay, we're okay. Thanks for coming. You're not off the hook yet. Any other discussions? Hearing none, the motion, the recommendation is to approve it. I guess it's just all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Who made the motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I don't think we made a motion.
I'll second that.
I'd make the motion to.
Motion by Erickson to approve it, second by Johnson. Now, any discussion? Why were we having discussion without the motion to approve?
I think we're tired.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. All right, item 10, new business. Item 10B is consideration of a variance from lot split standards for PID 412-90732. Mr. Krambeck, anything you wish to add to what's in our packet?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. So I'll just give a brief explanation here. So the applicant has requested 2 variances in order to perform an administrative lot split. The first variance is for maximum lot size in an RR district. Right now, the maximum lot size is 1 acre for creating new lots. The applicant is proposing 2.5 acre lot as well as a 3.54. The second variance request is from the subdivision ordinance, which requires newly created properties to have street frontage. So he'd be requesting a variance from this as well. The applicant is proposing access to the north property through a 30-foot wide easement on the east side of the property with the creation of a shared driveway. We did contact the police department as well as the fire department about potential access to that northern property there. The police department did not have any issues. I did speak with Dave Cox at the fire department. He said there is no code requirements for the access driveway, but did recommend a driveway width of 16 feet as well as having a compaction rating to support a fire truck. So this is something the applicant said he's certainly due to meet the needs of any emergency vehicles. Because the request was supported by the comprehensive plan and the practical difficulties of wetland that are unique to the site, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend granting the requested variances with the condition that Crow Wing County approves the septic designs prior to the administrative lot split.
Thank you. Any questions of the assistant planner? Hearing none, what's your pleasure on the lot split?
Mr. President, I would move to approve both variances requests that, as laid out by the planner.
With those conditions.
Thank you, with those conditions for.
Right on. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Pritchett. Motion by Erickson. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is the first reading of proposed ordinance 1530, an ordinance to rezone 1005 South 6th Street. Mr. Krambeck, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Because zoning map changes are a change to the zoning ordinance, it does require 2 readings. This is the first reading. The proposed rezoning, or the purpose of the rezoning, is to allow the applicant to apply for an interim use permit to operate a short-term rental at the property. There is no longer a moratorium in place for rezonings. The proposed rezoning of this would be an R2, medium-density residential district. This will not have any future proposed problems with the proposed zoning map that we're looking at right now. So it would not impact that. Planning Commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning request.
Thank you. Any questions of the Assistant Planner? Hearing none, this is a first reading. The Planning Commission has unanimously passed this on to us. Anybody care to make a motion to hold the first reading of proposed ordinance 1530, an ordinance amending ordinance number 812 pertaining to zoning in the city of Brainerd, and dispense with the actual reading?
So move.
Second.
Motion from Stunek, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Just a reminder to dispense with the actual reading. This must be unanimous. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is the public forum, item number 11. This is time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. We like to keep it to a couple of minutes. So if you're in the audience, we will open the public hearing at 10 o'clock. If you're online and wish to speak, just a reminder, *3 lets us know that you want to speak. It's 10 o'clock. We're in the public forum. This is your time to bring forth items that are not on the council. Second call. And at 10:01, we will close the public forum. Next up is staff reports. We'll start off to the side. Chief Holmes.
I have nothing to add.
Really? Did a good job today, Chief. Thank you. And your team did. HR Director Schubert. Attorney Langle.
Nothing here, thank you.
Assistant Planner Kramvik.
So I do have one item.
Yes, please.
So I'll be brief on here. Just wanted to give a quick update on the new proposed zoning code and map. So as you're aware, council directed staff to find properties with a significant zoning change. I guess I personally spent over 10 hours comparing those, the proposed zoning map to the current map, and did find a number of properties that needed further review. Some of the properties had significant zoning changes, while others were just some general cleanup that would not have affected the parcel, but would have a better zoning designation. So at the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission did review these properties and made their recommendations. I think it was certainly a valuable exercise, what we did with the recommendation of the zoning map. One area that was thoroughly discussed was the industrial properties along Brook Street. The primary discussion centered around finding a way to help the current businesses stay conforming while protecting the surrounding residential properties from potential heavier industrial uses. So just to kind of briefly explain what potentially looking at the next Planning Commission meeting would be discussion of the Brook Street industrial properties. Staff will be presenting the Planning Commission with 2 potential options for this area. Issuance of a CUP for current businesses, which would make them conforming, or through a potential overlay district in that area. Additionally to that, I did send out 7 letters total, but 4 letters to property owners that may not be aware of the zoning changes. So 2 of them were businesses, 2 of them were vacant properties. I definitely want to give them a chance to speak and voice any concerns. And I guess the last thing that we'll be touching base with is further discussion on the town center district at the next Planning Commission meeting. Right now we have a tentative schedule in place, but we should have that firmed up by the end of the week for future meetings.
Thank you. City Engineer, Public Works Director, we won't list everything. Sandy.
Timer, intern, whatever.
Former.
Yeah, that's right. He's going to be our intern.
A couple things. Yeah, intern. We do have a visual quality subcommittee meeting on Wednesday at 4 p.m. this week. So for those of you who want to attend that,
That's like your way out the door.
yeah, that's my last thing, my last hurrah.
Let's set up a parade, we'll drive by and honk the horn.
No, they're gonna have some good renderings and things of what the stuff we talked about at the last meeting. So we'll bring that group back together, consisting of Tiffany and Dave and Kelly and a few business owners. This is technically my last meeting, but you guys will see a lot more of me, obviously. And I hope to work on many projects with you all in the future. I have really appreciated my time here and getting to know every one of you very intimately. So, you can take that how you want, but created a lot of friendships in my time at the city here.
Be a harassment suit here pretty soon.
Created a lot of friendships. I couldn't do without my staff. That's who I give all the credit to. So, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Connie Hillman, Finance Director.
I do. So just to let you know that the notice of offices will be filed for the city general election. The filing's open on Tuesday, May 17th at 7:30 a.m. and they close at 5 o'clock on Tuesday, May 31st, 2022. The people that are up for election that are on the ballot this time would be the 2nd Ward, 4th Ward, Alderman at Large, and the mayor.
Well, he won tonight. He was shaking everybody's hand.
Right, bring it.
Thank you, Connie. Sean Strong, ITGIS Director.
Yeah, I'll just mention quick, tomorrow starts a 3-day install of all the broadcast equipment over at the college. So there's still some loose ends to tie up, but there's a decent chance you'll be on TV in June if you know anyone with cable.
Ew.
I'll have to get a suit.
We get that 750 grand check. Anything from the police department, John? Nothing? It's all smooth as can be and.
Well, look at his head. It's smooth as it.
Hey, calm down
That was not a council comment.
You say like that's not a compliment.
You ain't got a lot going up there yourself.
Yeah. His name is Kevin Stunek. I'll get you his address.
Get that red truck.
And his license plate number. Who's online? Eric, anything from the HRA?
Nothing this evening, Mr. President.
Was that you making all the noise earlier?
It was not.
Eric.
Sure.
And our Administrator Bergman.
I will be very brief. 2 things. One, I am going to the MCMA conference at the end of this week. That's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Looking forward to it. It'll be my first in-person MCMA conference. Secondly, in your packet, you do have a spreadsheet. I was asked to put together a list of all of the tasks that the City Engineer, Public Works Director, and Community Development Director have. Thank you to Paul and to David for really helping fill this out on all the projects that they have. They have been green light, they're kind of green light, yellow light, red light. If you could please take a look at this, I would love your feedback and your comments. And again, thank you to Chairman Johnson for this recommendation, greatly appreciated. Before I stop, I just want to say thank you, Paul. Thank you for everything you've done for the city. We will miss you with that hat, and we look forward to you with your new hat.
Who's getting a new hat?
Thank you. Tad Erickson?
He's got a new hat.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Paul. Congratulations on your new position. We'll miss working with you. Thanks. That's all.
Tiffany Stingline?
Well, I just wanted to join in. Paul, thank you for all of your time here. I can't help but, when I was working on the 2nd floor across the hall, you were always so great with the people who stopped by. Even though most of them were asking for directions on where to take their driver's license test. But you handled it really well. So thank you for all the customer service, even when they weren't actually even in the right building.
Thank you, Dave Pritchett.
Again, thank you, Paul. There's a strange color appearing in our lawns. It's kind of a greenish thing. I'm not sure what that's about. We're supposed to get
Shovel it, quick.
I need the brigade. Get out there, enjoy the weather. It's Minnesota. You don't know how long it's going to last. All right.
Chief Stunek?
Thanks, Kevin.
I think he just cast a curse on you.
Chairman O'Day?
Yeah, I don't know what that was. I've never seen him do that before, so good luck. I want to reiterate to Paul, it's been great. I got put into this position, and without a guy like you being patient when I'm figuring out what I can and cannot do, pushing your buttons all the time, it wouldn't have been as fun. So this has been a lot of fun. It's only a year and a half, but I feel like I've known you forever. So look forward to working with you on different projects and everything we still have to figure out, but congratulations to you on that. As far as the big item of the night, the Arboretum, You know, I hope.
On the agenda.
I hoped, yeah. I hoped that something good would come out of it, and I think something good did come out of it. Even though it didn't go exactly how I thought it should, I think what we did is we came up with a better idea of how to move forward and deal with the situation that we were in and made some changes. So, positives. Thank you. End of report.
Chairman Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple follow-ups on staff reports. First and foremost, James, thanks for going through all those non-conforming properties. It sounds like it took you a lot of time, but like you said, it was a worthy exercise. I'm really glad you did it. I'm glad planning and zoning handled it, and I think what they came up with working with staff on that, is a good solution. Into the town center, I'm a big fan of the town center, as in make it as big as possible, but leave the parking lots out of it. We can develop those. I told the downtown business owner, Sean, that we're shooting for June. So I put you on the spot, but it looks like you're on schedule for that anyway, that we're going to be back on cable. People are still asking about cable. And then, and Paul, you...
They sent a pigeon.
Paul, you've been easily, without a doubt, a top 2 city engineer that I've worked with in the 8 years I've been here, hands down. But you have been excellent to work with. You're great at public facing and great at city council facing. If we have a concern and bring it to you, you don't let it fester. You just kind of get it done so you don't have to deal with it anymore. And that's, I like people that work that way. I think that's excellent. And I thank you for all your great work and your time with city, and good luck with WSP.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I was thinking back at all the great times we had, and I just couldn't forget going down to that church on Buffalo Hills when all those people started stringing you up within the first 5 minutes. Wasn't that something? Wasn't that fun?
That's the memory that'll stick with me forever.
That was fun. Sitting in the back having waters and cookies, watching poor Paul up there getting crucified.
We got it done, though. We got it done.
Hey, if you're gonna get crucified, church, good place.
I told you we would get that done. It wasn't pretty. No. But thank you for taking the heat on that one and so many other ones. And we'll look forward to working with you in the future. Mr. Mayor, we've saved the best for last.
Okay, well, first and foremost, Paul, I hate you. You stink. You're terrible.
Yeah.
Get him out of here. To bring back the Buffalo Hills, I remember getting a text message from Paul after that happened saying, "Where were you?" and then saying thanks.
They call that under the bus.
I apologize for that. Just super fast, planning and zoning, Councilman Johnson touched on it super fast. I talked just briefly about my concerns with that town center versus the main street. I think I'd like to see us visit that and really look at what that line looks like, but that we can continue to do. I think we have come a long way with that entire document, and I think it's a testament of the work that has been put in by these gentlemen here, as well as the rest of planning and zoning. And 10 hours of trying to compare what has and has not changed. None of that sounds fun. Okay, one last thing, and this is to put 2 hats on at the same time, community action and the mayor. Paul talked briefly about East River Road and about the construction that will be put off until after the 4th of July. 5th Street, if you haven't noticed yet, in front of the high school, that has already started to be shifted. There's going to be some construction happening there. We had hoped that that would take place after the 4th of July as well. That will not be the case. So 5th Street will be tore up, and so there will be some changes happening to you out there in wonderful 4th of July land. The parade route is going to shift, but we're just going to kind of shift it forward a little bit and shorten it a little bit. So it's still going to go around kind of the same area, but it's not going to make the giant loop. We're still working that out with the school district to make sure that everything is correct before we show plans for everyone. But I just want to give everybody a heads up on that in front of the school there, that is going to be an active construction site. And so again, for the, 3rd time in a row here with the 4th of July, there's going to be some changes and people just need to be aware of that. And then Arts in the Park. Hey-o, if you like to make things with your hands, I got spots for you to sell your wares and your goods right there at Gregory Park. Sit down, gentlemen. I am not done. Get your applications in. You got a couple weeks left to get your applications in so that you can partake. That is one of the greatest events that happens in our city, where you just get to hang out. And I will mention, there is rumblings, potential. We'll find out. Brainerd JCs, haven't decided quite yet. Beer. Ooh, beer. That's all I'm going to say.
Actual beer.
And with that, end of report.
I'd like to lodge the first complaint about the parade route. Before I even see it, I hate it.
I think you just wait until the construction's done, then have it.
Motion to adjourn,
make
state
a motion.
line, second by Stunek. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.